What the hell is this? Panic surged through him and he yanked the drive away, his heart racing. The client stood, their hood falling back slightly to reveal a glimpse of features obscured by shadow. Still silent, they turned to leave, an enigmatic figure that seemed to blend into the darkness of the booth. "Wait," Silas called out, desperation creeping into his voice. "You can't just leave with this." But the client walked out, vanishing into the dimly lit parlor, leaving the drive behind. Silas sat in the dark, holding a memory that shouldn't exist, a memory of his own death from the future. The implications were staggering, a puzzle he had no idea how to solve. He felt the weight of the drive in his hand, as if it pulsed with a life of its own, a dark promise of knowledge that could unravel the very fabric of his existence. He glanced at the door, half expecting the client to return, but the parlor remained silent. The only sound, the distant hum of machinery. He was alone now, confronted by the specter of his own mortality. The temptation to delve into the memory was intoxicating. What had happened? How could he be dead in a future that had not yet unfolded? The questions swirled in his mind, each one more urgent than the last. He could almost hear the memories calling to him, a siren's song beckoning him closer. Silas took a deep breath, forcing himself to focus. He had to approach this carefully. The rules of the memory market were clear. Once you entered the depths of someone's mind, there was no turning back. He had seen too many neuroforgers lose themselves in the memories they sought to extract, becoming trapped in the labyrinth of someone else's life. He wouldn't let that happen to him. He activated the drive again, his fingers moving deftly over the controls. The interface lit up, revealing layers of memories intertwined like threads in a tapestry. Each one was a potential doorway, a glimpse into a life that had been lived, or perhaps a life that had yet to be. As he navigated through the chaotic landscape of thoughts, he felt a chill creeping down his spine. The memories were disjointed, fragmented, and yet there was a clarity in the chaos. Flashes of images, sounds, and emotions swirled around him, each one a puzzle piece that hinted at a greater truth. He saw moments of anger, a confrontation, shouting, faces twisted in rage. Then laughter, bright and infectious, a stark contrast to the previous memory. A warm embrace, a fleeting touch. And then darkness, an explosion of pain, blinding light, and the sensation of falling. Silas gasped as he felt the rush of emotions wash over him. Fear, regret, sorrow, and ultimately acceptance. The memories were overwhelming, crashing over him like waves against a shore. He fought to maintain his grip on reality, aware that he was teetering on the edge of a precipice. Just as he thought he might lose himself, a single memory crystallized into focus. It was a vision of himself, sitting in a darkened room, the flickering light of a screen illuminating his features. He was not alone. Another figure loomed nearby, their face obscured by shadows. "Silas," a voice called out, rich and familiar yet tinged with an undercurrent of menace. "You can't escape your fate." The words echoed in his mind, reverberating through the chamber of his thoughts. He felt the icy fingers of dread curling around his heart. "Who are you?" he shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. But the figure only smiled, lips curling into a smirk that promised secrets yet to be revealed. The memory shattered, dissipating into a haze of colors and sounds, leaving him gasping for breath in the void. Silas pulled back, disconnecting from the drive as if it had burned him. He leaned back in the chair, heart pounding, thoughts racing. What had he just witnessed? The memory had felt so real, so tangible. But who was that figure? And what fate awaited him? The questions loomed larger than life, and he felt a gnawing sense of urgency. He needed answers. He glanced at the clock on the wall, the digital numbers flickering ominously in the dim light. Time was slipping away, and he couldn't afford to linger in the recesses of uncertainty. He had to locate the client, the one who had left the drive behind. Silas rose from the chair, determination coursing through his veins. He pushed through the door, stepping back into the parlor filled with the scent of burnt thoughts. He scanned the room, searching for any sign of the enigmatic figure. "Lena," he called, his voice cutting through the haze. The old neuroforger looked up from her desk, a quizzical expression on her face. "What's got you all riled up? Did you see where the client went?" He didn't bother to hide the urgency in his tone. Lena shrugged, her fingers drumming against the desk. "They slipped out before I could catch a glimpse. You know how it goes, ghosts in this business." Silas clenched his fists, frustration boiling beneath the surface. "I need to find them. They left something important behind." "Important or dangerous?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. You know better than to chase shadows, Silas. Tell me where to start, he replied, his voice steadying. He had come too far to back down now. Lena sighed, leaning back in her chair. Last I heard, they were connected to some rogue element, underground networks. If you want to trace them, you'll have to dig deep. And be careful, these people don't play nice. Where do I find them? He pressed, unwilling to let go of the lead. Try the Gloom District, she said, a hint of caution in her eyes. It's a hive of scum and villainy, but if you're looking for answers, that's where you'll find them. Silas nodded, determination igniting within him. He had faced danger before, but this felt different. The stakes were higher, the shadows darker, but he couldn't ignore the pull of the unknown. Thanks, Lena, he said before heading toward the exit. As he stepped out into the night, the air was thick with the promise of chaos. The streets of the city were alive, a cacophony of sounds and lights, but Silas felt a singular focus guiding him forward. He had to unravel the threads of his own fate. No matter how daunting the path ahead, the Gloom District awaited him, a place where secrets thrived and danger lurked around every corner. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The memory drive was a ticking time bomb, and he was determined to defuse it before it consumed him. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 1. The Smell of Burnt Thoughts. The first thing Silas Ward noticed when he entered the memory parlor was the scent. Not the sterile chemical tank of polished labs or the ozone crackle of data cores. No, this was something else, burnt sugar and ash. The smell of thoughts stripped too fast, of memories cooked until they curled and cracked like paper in fire. It was a scent that lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating, as if the walls themselves were saturated with the remnants of lost identities. The kind of smell that meant someone had paid for forgetting more than they could afford. He adjusted the cuff of his long coat, a worn piece that had seen better days, and stepped over the body slumped in the corner. A young man, maybe 20, eyes wide, pupils blown open, still breathing but barely. A used neural collar around his neck blinked red. Extraction failed. Another amateur, Silas muttered, shaking his head. The streets were littered with the wreckage of dreams, but this was a new low, a reminder of the dangers that came with the territory. Behind the glass partition, the neuroforger on duty, an old tech-inked woman named Lena, looked up from her desk. She didn't stand, didn't greet him, just tapped a finger against her temple in a lazy salute. You're late. You're always dying, he shot back. Figured you'd wait. The banter was familiar, a ritual they performed whenever he entered her domain. He had grown accustomed to the dark humor that permeated the memory market, a coping mechanism for those who toiled in the shadows of memory manipulation. She smirked, her tattoo shifting slightly as she moved, ink blurring into shapes that resembled fleeting thoughts, not unlike the memories they extracted. Booth 4 clients already in. Paid premium for silence? Silas raised an eyebrow. Off the ledger? Lena shrugged. Didn't ask, didn't want to know. That was the rule in the memory market. No questions, no footprints, no second chances. You walked in with secrets, you left without them, or you didn't leave at all. As he made his way to booth 4, Silas reflected on the nature of the work. Memory forensics had become a thriving industry, an underbelly of society where the wealthy paid handsomely to erase painful experiences, while others sought to reclaim lost fragments of their past. The lines blurred between victim and villain, and Silas had learned to navigate this murky world with a mix of caution and cynicism. Booth 4 was cold, quiet, and dark, shrouded in shadows that seemed to swallow sound. The client sat alone, hood pulled low, face hidden. On the table in front of them was a sealed memory drive, black glass, illegal encoding, no serial. The kind of drive used for private truths, the kind you couldn't copy without the memory screaming. Silas sat down across from the stranger. He didn't speak, allowing the silence to stretch between them, testing the waters. The client pushed the drive forward, their gloved fingers barely brushing the surface of the table. I want this extracted safely. Without contamination. What's on it? Silas asked, cocking his head slightly, curiosity piqued. Nothing I remember, that's the point. The voice was muffled, distorted by the hood, but there was an urgency in the tone that intrigued him. Silas narrowed his eyes. He connected the drive to his reader, feeling a familiar thrill as the interface buzzed to life, lights flickering in odd patterns. The neural code inside didn't behave like typical memory strands, it was chaotic, erratic. It moved backward, defying the laws of memory extraction. That's when he saw it, his own face, flickering in a flash frame memory embedded in the file. Older, bloodied, eyes empty, dead.